Let us go then, you and I, when the evening is spread out against the sky, like a patient etherized upon a table. Let us go through certain half-deserted streets, the muttering retreats of restless nights in one-night cheap hotels and sawdust restaurants with oyster shells, streets that follow like a tedious argument of insidious intent to lead you to an overwhelming question. Oh, do not ask, what is it? Let us go and make our visit.
The Love Song of J. Alfred Prufrock by T.S. Eliot is a dramatic monologue that explores the inner thoughts and feelings of a man named Prufrock, who is crippled by insecurity and indecision. The poem delves into the theme of existential angst, as Prufrock contemplates the futility of life and love, constantly questioning his worth and the meaning of his existence. This excerpt from T.S. Eliot's poem suggests a journey through the urban landscape at dusk, likened to the disoriented state of a patient under anesthesia, indicating a sense of disconnection or alienation. The speaker invites the reader through less populated, possibly seedy areas, characterized by cheap hotels and low-end restaurants, suggesting an exploration of the darker, neglected parts of life or society. The journey seems to be leading towards an unsettling, yet unspecified question, which the speaker discourages from asking, implying the discomfort or fear associated with confronting certain truths or realities.
In the room, the women come and go, talking of Michelangelo.
These lines depict the superficiality of social conventions and intellectual pretensions. The women's conversation about Michelangelo, a renowned figure in high culture, is repeated and casual, suggesting that they may not truly understand or appreciate his work, but are merely using it as a topic for polite conversation.
The yellow fog that rubs its back upon the window panes. The yellow smoke that rubs its muzzle on the window panes. Licked its tongue into the corners of the evening. Lingered upon the pools that stand in drains. Let fall upon its back the soot that falls from chimneys. Slipped by the terrace, made a sudden leap, and seeing that it was a soft October night, curled once about the house and fell asleep.
This excerpt personifies the fog and smoke, using them as symbols to depict the melancholic and murky atmosphere of the urban setting. The fog's actions, licking, lingering, slipping, leaping, curling, reflect Prufrock's own indecisiveness and aimless wandering in life. The final line suggests the silent and uneventful passing of time, reinforcing the theme of existential dread and the insignificance of one's existence.
And indeed there will be time, for the yellow smoke that slides along the street, rubbing its back upon the window panes. There will be time, there will be time, to prepare a face to meet the faces that you meet. There will be time to murder and create, and time for all the works and days of hands that lift and drop a question on your plate. Time for you and time for me, and time yet for 100 indecisions, and for 100 visions and revisions, poo before the taking of a toast and tea.
These lines reflect the speaker's contemplation of time and its passage. The yellow smoke symbolizes the mundane and sometimes suffocating routines of life. The repeated phrase, "there will be time," underscores the speaker's anxiety about the future and the constant pressure to conform to societal expectations, such as preparing a face for social interactions. The 100 indecisions, visions, and revisions represent the speaker's internal struggles and uncertainties, while the taking of a toast and tea signifies the ordinary events of life that continue amidst these existential concerns.
In the room, the women come and go, talking of Michelangelo.
These lines suggest a social environment where cultured individuals discuss highbrow topics like Michelangelo, symbolizing a world of intellectual and social sophistication. However, the repetition implies a sense of superficiality and monotony in these social interactions. The speaker, Prufrock, feels alienated and disconnected from this world, emphasizing his isolation and self-doubt.
And indeed there will be time to wonder, do I dare, and do I dare? Time to turn back and descend the stair, with a bald spot in the middle of my hair. They will say, how his hair is growing thin, my morning coat, my collar mounting firmly to the chin. My necktie rich and modest, but asserted by a simple pin. They will say, but how his arms and legs are thin. Do I dare disturb the universe? In a minute there is time for decisions and revisions which a minute will reverse.
The speaker is reflecting upon his anxieties and insecurities about aging, appearance, and societal judgment. He contemplates the courage it takes to disrupt the status quo. Do I dare disturb the universe? And the constant cycle of decision-making and regret, for decisions and revisions which a minute will reverse. The lines illustrate his struggle with self-doubt and fear of judgment, as well as his desire for significance in a transient world.
For I have known them all already, known them all. Have known the evenings, mornings, afternoons. I have measured out my life with coffee spoons. I know the voices dying with a dying fall beneath the music from a farther room. So how should I presume?
The speaker is expressing his familiarity with the mundane routine of life, marked by repetitive daily events like evenings, mornings, and afternoons. His life has been so routine and predictable that he has been able to measure it with something as trivial as coffee spoons. The voices dying with a dying fall suggest a sense of melancholy and the fading of vitality, possibly due to aging or disillusionment. The final line reflects his hesitation and self-doubt about making a significant change or taking an action in his life.
And I have known the eyes already, known them all. The eyes that fix you in a formulated phrase. And when I am formulated sprawling on a pin, when I am pinned and wriggling on the wall, then how should I begin to spit out all the butt ends of my days and ways? And how should I presume?
Prufrock expresses his anxiety and fear of judgment. He feels scrutinized and dissected, like an insect pinned and wriggling on the wall, unable to escape the critical gaze of others. The butt ends of my days and ways suggests his regret and dissatisfaction with his past actions and the direction of his life, and his hesitation to presume reflects his self-doubt and fear of rejection or failure.
And I have known the arms already, known them all. Arms that are braceleted and white and bare, but in the lamplight downed with light brown hair. Is it perfume from a dress that makes me so digress? Arms that lie along a table or wrap about a shawl. And should I then presume? And how should I begin?
Prufrock is expressing a familiarity with, and perhaps a weariness of, the social rituals and superficialities of the upper class, symbolized by the bracelet and white and bare arms of women. The mention of the perfume causing him to digress suggests the sensory distractions and allure of these superficialities. The last lines reflect his apprehension and uncertainty about how to navigate or initiate deeper, more meaningful interactions within this context.
Shall I say, I have gone at dusk through narrow streets, and watched the smoke that rises from the pipes of lonely men in shirt sleeves leaning out of windows.
These lines depict the speaker's observation of the mundane, everyday life of the common man. He ponders whether he should share his experiences of walking through narrow streets at dusk, observing the solitude of men leaning out of their windows, their loneliness indicated by the rising smoke from their pipes. The imagery suggests a sense of isolation and longing, as well as the speaker's contemplation of his own place in the world.
I should have been a pair of ragged claws, scuttling across the floors of silent seas.
In this line, Eliot's character expresses a desire to escape his overthinking and social anxiety, wishing he were a simple creature like a crab, oblivious to complexities of human existence and emotions, and living in the calm, quiet depths of the ocean. It reflects his yearning for a simpler, less stressful existence.
And the afternoon, the evening, sleeps so peacefully. Smoothed by long fingers, asleep, tired, or it malingers, stretched on the floor here beside you and me. Should I, after tea and cakes and ices, have the strength to force the moment to its crisis? But though I have wept and fasted, wept and prayed, though I have seen my head, grown slightly bald, brought in upon a platter, I am no prophet, and here's no great matter. I have seen the moment of my greatness flicker, and I have seen the eternal footman hold my coat and snicker, and in short I was afraid.
In these lines, the speaker is expressing his internal conflict and fear of making a decision that could potentially lead to a significant change in his life. He is aware of the passing of time, symbolized by the afternoon and evening, and his inability to seize the moment. Despite his efforts to prepare himself through fasting and prayer, he admits his fear of the potential ridicule or dismissal, symbolized by the eternal footman snickering, that could follow his decision, revealing a deep-seated insecurity and lack of confidence.
And would it have been worth it, after all? After the cups, the marmalade, the tea, among the porcelain, among some talk of you and me? Would it have been worth while to have bitten off the matter with a smile, to have squeezed the universe into a ball, to roll it towards some overwhelming question? To say, I am Lazarus, come from the dead, come back to tell you all, I shall tell you all. If one, settling a pillow by her head, should say, that is not what I meant at all, that is not it at all.
The speaker is contemplating the value and potential consequences of expressing his true feelings. He wonders if, after all the mundane routines and polite conversations, it would have been worth it to boldly present his thoughts, symbolized by squeezing the universe into a ball and presenting it as an overwhelming question. However, he fears the possibility of misunderstanding or rejection, represented by the person saying, "That is not what I meant at all."
And would it have been worth it, after all? Would it have been worthwhile? After the sunsets and the dooryards and the sprinkled streets, after the novels, after the teacups, after the skirts that trail along the floor, and this, and so much more. It is impossible to say just what I mean, but as if a magic lantern threw the nerves in patterns on a screen. Would it have been worthwhile if one, settling a pillow or throwing off a shawl, and turning toward the window should say, that is not it at all, that is not what I meant at all?
Eliot explores the speaker's anxiety and fear of miscommunication and misunderstanding. The speaker contemplates whether all the experiences and efforts would have been worthwhile if they ultimately fail to convey the intended meaning. The metaphor of a magic lantern projecting nerves onto a screen suggests the vulnerability and exposure the speaker feels in expressing his innermost thoughts and feelings, and the fear that despite all this, his true meaning might still be misconstrued or dismissed.
No, I am not Prince Hamlet, nor was meant to be. Am an attendant lord, one that will do to swell a progress, start a scene or two, advise the prince, no doubt an easy tool, deferential, glad to be of use, politic, cautious, and meticulous, full of high sentence but a bit obtuse, at times indeed almost ridiculous, almost at times the fool.
Prufrock is expressing a sense of self-doubt and inferiority. He compares himself to the tragic hero Hamlet, stating he is not meant to be a protagonist, but rather a supporting character, an attendant lord, someone who is useful and cautious, but also somewhat dull and even ridiculous at times. The ending line suggests his feeling of being a fool, reinforcing his lack of self-confidence and feeling of insignificance.
I grow old, I grow old, I shall wear the bottoms of my trousers rolled.
These lines express the speaker's acceptance of his impending old age and his decision to embrace it in a somewhat unconventional way, symbolized by his choice to roll his trouser bottoms. This act can be seen as a form of rebellion against societal norms and expectations associated with aging.
Shall I part my hair behind? Do I dare to eat a peach? I shall wear white flannel trousers and walk upon the beach. I have heard the mermaids singing each to each.
These lines express the Prufrock's anxiety and self-consciousness about aging and societal expectations. The questions about parting his hair and eating a peach represent his fear of judgment and ridicule, while the decision to wear white flannel trousers and walk on the beach signifies his longing for youthful freedom. The mention of mermaids singing symbolizes an unreachable ideal or fantasy, emphasizing his feelings of isolation and unfulfilled desires.
I do not think that they will sing to me.
Prufrock's sense of isolation and fear of rejection are expressed. He doubts that they, likely referring to society or a specific person he desires, will reciprocate his feelings or acknowledge his worth, symbolized through the act of singing to him.
I have seen them riding seaward on the waves, combing the white hair of the waves blown back, when the wind blows the water white and black. We have lingered in the chambers of the sea, by sea girls wreathed with seaweed red and brown, till human voices wake us and we drown.
Eliot uses the imagery of the sea and sea girls to represent a dreamlike, idealized world that is far removed from reality. Prufrock has been lost in this fantasy until he is abruptly brought back to reality by human voices. The phrase, "and we drown," suggests the overwhelming nature of reality and the inability to cope with it, symbolizing his desire to escape from the pressures and expectations of the real world.